Hello there, everybody. Welcome to another JNJtabletop video. I'm Jake. This is Josh. We did Reddit questions one time, like a year ago. So Happy New Year, by the way. You can hit the subscribe button if you want, but we're going to talk about Reddit questions.
Yeah, so first one here is general advice wanted, please. And disappointment, thank you for saying please. I appreciate that. It really is the magic word. So disappointment says, I've never been a DM before and would like to try it out sometime. Although I'm not really sure how to come up with stuff. I know there is also campaigns I can use, and I would like to try them out as well, since my group has only ever done homebrew campaigns. Other than that, I would like to hear general advice about how to go about it. I might make a post later about the homebrew campaign I've thought of after giving it more thought. Disappointment. I think you're finding yourself in the chair of where many of us have been before, where you've never DM'd the game and you just really want to do it. And my advice to you is just do it. Just go for it. I mean, Jake, there's some really easy ways to start. And I think you actually have some videos on that.
We do. I think the idea of doing modules is great. We're known for running Dragon of Icespire Peak and Dragons of Stormwreck Isle, which is the latest starter kit and the essentials kit. Personally, I prefer Dragon of Icespire Peak, but I think any of these modules is going to be a good place to start. And it sounds like you already have ideas for a homebrew campaign too, so you're probably in better shape than you think. And we also have some video. We did a video on the decision to DM, which you can watch that as well. So yeah, other than that, Be kind, be respectful, listen, try to roll with what your players are trying to do, and I think you should be in good shape.
Make sure whatever you do, have a session 0 with your group, talk to them, see what they actually want to do. Find out what they're interested in. Maybe they like your idea for the homebrew campaign. It's going to be more work for you, but if you're excited about it, then it might be easier work than trying to get excited about someone else's story. So box set is definitely going to be the easiest, but if you're excited about it, do your homebrew thing. It's going to be a blast. And if you have questions about that and how to do it, be happy to talk about that. We love homebrew.
Agitated Length 2493 writes, character achieved their goal too quickly. My character, Human Fighter, achieved their goal very quickly in our campaign. Previous character turned into Owlbear Poo. Yes, that says Owlbear Poo. So have only had the current one for a few sessions. Very simple and cliched backstory. Town guardman pursued his corrupt former commander in order to restore the reputation of the town guard. His commander now lies dead, who was simply a small cog in a larger machine, and so it hasn't ended the main quest line for our party. What are some simple ideas for the new motivations for a lawful guardman who has now experienced the big city and wants to continue adventuring? Josh, I feel like the answer's kind of right there in the second paragraph. I mean...
I totally agree.
Small cog in a larger machine.
Yeah, and it's interesting because the first time we read that, that's what I was totally focused on. And it's like, oh, he was just a small cog in a larger machine. I almost said small cog in a larger machine. That's another problem.
Big yikes.
Oh, man.
See a medical professional if that ever happens to you.
So small cog in a larger machine, that's what I was focused on. When I read this the first few times. And, the obvious answer to that is, okay, well, if your goal was to restore the reputation of the town guard, you didn't actually do that if this commander was just part of something bigger. So I would say that if that was your goal, you didn't necessarily achieved it. You might have got the small victory, but there's definitely a larger battle that's still going on, larger war that's still going on. But that last paragraph, what are some simple ideas for the new motivations for a lawful guardman who has now experienced the big city and wants to continue adventuring? That to me sounds like maybe he feels like he did his part. I don't care about the bigger thing. I've gone out and I've seen the world and I want to see more of it. And I think that's totally fine. And I think for a lawful guard, maybe now you seek out corruption and other places, and you just want to go do the same thing everywhere else.
Your characters theoretically are making friends along the way. It doesn't always work out that way, but they should be invested in seeing their friends succeed. as do real life friends. So if you're interested in making us succeed, hit the like button maybe and give us some emojis telling us that you did so in the comment section below.
Our next story is going to be from Optics Spy 24 or Optics Pi 24, maybe. I don't know. DM killed my summon out of nowhere. Am I wrong for being upset? So we were in a cave and I had somehow rolled an 8 on my bag of tricks. So a giant elk formed. I was going for a small animal to make a distraction, but the elk helped in the current room. We backtracked to this open room of the cave we had been before that had a super deep hole that most likely led to the Underdark. My elk is basically touching the ceiling with its horns and alerts some dark mantles above us, and one casts darkness. I tell my elk to use its horns to attack the area the dark mantle was within its reach, knowing it would miss, but there's always a chance you could land a hit. He missed on like an 8 plus 6, which was fine. And then my DM just said, well, your elk misses and moves forward and falls in the hole and dies. The hole did not collapse or get wider. He said it just fell in at full HP and died. I then said, what? How? He has 10 feet of reach and was stationary. He said, because you are near an open chasm and can't see. Then says I was reckless and made a dumb move. I don't care that it died because it disappears at dawn anyway, but we were going into a big fight and it's a 1 in 8 chance to pull it out of the bag. So it's not like it's easy to pull something that useful from the bag. Am I wrong for being upset?
Boy.
That's a doozy.
Yeah. There's some layers on this one. I mean, they backtracked, right? So that this elk, they theoretically are familiar, or at least somewhat familiar with the location of this hole. And correct me if I'm wrong, I don't think he says to charge with the horns. I think he just says to attack with the horns, and just kind of a blind thing here. So no, you're not wrong for being upset, Optics Pie. I think I would be upset if you didn't actually make pie for your group. That might help make the DM in a better mood. And then
get you some better optics.
Get some better optics for some better rulings. Never hurts to bribe the DM with good treats. But no, I mean, just the all or nothing right away is, I don't like that, Josh.
I'm right there with you. I mean, it seems like the DM just hadn't planned for the elk and didn't want to deal with it. So they were just like, oh yeah, you did that thing, but oh no, too bad, it's dead now. And I don't even necessarily think it's wrong for saying that like there's a chance for the elk to fall into the chasm, but this is a game of communication, right? Everything comes down to communication and setting expectations. You've heard us say that it has to be thousands of times at this point. If that's what you're thinking might happen as the DM, let your player know. Hey, it's a small room, not a lot of room for this elk to make this attack. There's a chance that, you know, it's going to miss and lose its balance and fall into this chasm. I just want you to know that that is a potential consequence.
Yeah.
At least set the expectation so it's not just falling out of nowhere, because that is pretty frustrating.
It's very frustrating. And I feel like I've been on both sides of this before. And sometimes when I'm the dungeon master and I describe something and the feedback or ideas that are coming back at me from the players tells me like, okay, they are not imagining this situation the way I'm imagining this situation. And at that point, usually as a DM, I try to clarify a little bit of what, like I may have described it, but I may just be like, okay, so this is actually how I see this. I'm not sure if you're seeing it the same way, because I think it's okay to just take a little time out there and when in doubt, chew it over with Twix. I don't know. This one's all about food for me, Josh.
With a name like Optics Pie 24,
yeah, right?
You know,
Optics Pie.
Yeah.
No Thought 5561 has the age-old question of, do I have problem players or am I problem DM? I'm DMing Waterdeep Dragon Heist with some friends, which makes this harder, and each session I'm coming out having less fun. I like to try to be a DM that lets my characters have freedom to do what they want, but I didn't expect 3 of them to align themselves with evil. They almost always do something corrupt in every scenario, and sometimes I have to remind them that what they are doing is illegal, and they have the potential to be caught in the moment, and when I tell them that, they immediately change their mind. Is that bad DMing? I don't want to stop them each time they have a fun idea, but it's clear that every time they don't think about the ramifications of their actions. To add to this, none of them roleplay. I chose Waterdeep Dragon Heist because they initially made it sound like role-playing is what they really wanted to do, but I often find myself saying things like, okay, so you walk up to the rest of the group knowing this information. Silence. Is there anything you want to say to the party? They also only interact with their environment to find a secret room. Otherwise, I'm blatantly telling them how they proceed in the scenario because they won't do it themselves. I'm not sure if my discontent with our campaign is a result of me not being able to be the DM that fits their style, or if they are just not great at playing the game. It's 5 players, and most of them are new. Even so, as a DM and friend, I want to blame myself first and try to change something I'm doing rather than cause conflict by telling them to play differently. Well, Josh, at least at the end there, he's looking inward, whoever No Thought is. They want to make sure it's not, I want to make sure it's not you and it's me, or it's not me, it's you. I don't know. This sounds like a breakup conversation.
Yeah, I can see that. I think the answer to the title question, right, is neither. Well, neither asterisk.
Yeah.
Neither of them are necessarily problem players or problem DMs, right? It sounds like lack of communication beforehand. It doesn't sound like there's a session 0. Some missed expectations is what I'm hearing in this, where the DM thought that they wanted to do all this role playing, and the players, I mean, it could be something as simple as if they're new players, they might not know how to role play. That's the importance of a session 0. So I don't think it's too late to have a pause and be like, hey group, we're not going to play tonight, but I would still love for you to come over. Let's have a pizza. Let's hang out. I want to talk about the game, make sure we're all on the same page still. And, maybe we'll play Monopoly afterwards or something like that. Like, you still make it a fun time, still hang out, you're all friends, but just talk to them and see what they actually want to do.
Yep.
There's another side of this. Do you want to talk about the other
I got this one. If your group, we'll start back at the beginning of this post. If your group continually forgets about the ramifications of their issues and the things that they're doing and all that kind of stuff, I really think at some point you should say, I'm not going to continue to remind you. At some point, I'm going to just let you do what you want to do. And if it is illegal, you are going to get actual consequences. Player agency is real. It works for good things and bad things, or just consequence things. It's kind of a big deal. It's kind of what makes the game feel real. We've got video on that. You should check it out. It's we started off with a meme about an agency for players. In fact, Josh, I've been meaning to talk to you about my contract with Ancient Relics and Oathkey Religions. I want to raise.
Yeah, just route that all through my complaints department, which is that's D&D Reddit.
Oh, there you go.
Disputes.
Well played.
We have a bit of a long one from UCR Buffalo. I think I might be a toxic player, and I need help to fix it. I was introduced to the tabletop RPG hobby about 5 years ago. I played in a couple campaigns, and I had no idea what I was doing, but I enjoyed the stories that were being built and just kept going. I ended up coming up with a cool idea for a campaign of my own and started DMing. Since then, I have become the primary DM of our main group, running a homebrew world at first, but more recently running pre-made adventures from Wizards of the Coast. I don't pretend to know all of the rules, but the ones that I run into a lot, I definitely know well. And I'm always open to asking other people around the table what their interpretation of the rules are, if there's any questions about them. A friend from work wanted to start a D&D campaign, and I was really excited to join so I could be a player character again. I built my character and we set a date. During the first session, I kept explaining rules to some of the other players, one of which had never played D&D before, and the other hadn't played since the 80s. In my mind, I was helping the players learn stuff so that the DM could focus on other stuff. Today, we had our second session, and I'm realizing something that I did in both sessions that desperately needs to be fixed, questioning the DM's decisions. I'm not trying to be a rules lawyer, but that's how it's coming across. One example from today. I stepped away from an enemy, which opened me up to an attack of opportunity. The DM said the enemy would hit me twice. When I asked why, he said that they have multi-attack. I then informed him that the opportunity attack, or they wrote attack of opportunity, specifies that you only get one melee attack as I step away. We spent a moment looking up the rule and reading it verbatim before he agreed with me and left it as one attack. When the DM makes a mistake in the rules that I know, I find myself correcting him. I'm just trying to help so that we could play the game the way it is designed. And every time I do, he rules the table based on the rules as written rules. And the first time he tells me, this is the way I want to run that rule, I would absolutely back off of it. But I don't want him or the other players to get annoyed with me. Is there any way that I could still help him when rules mistakes are made without coming across as a toxic rules lawyer? Or do I just need to keep my mouth shut and roll with it? Jake, is this person a toxic player?
Nope.
We were just going to leave it at that, but we didn't want to leave you hanging. I just want to mention about a rules lawyer. That term gets thrown around a lot. Rules lawyers is something that we would talk about in 3rd edition when there were conditions for attack of opportunity, when it was called attack of opportunity, not opportunity attacks, fun fact. There was like a chart for like, does this cause an attack of opportunity? And there were many instances where the answer was maybe. So with weird rules like that, you would have people that would just get into these arguments and fights with the DMs. That's a rules lawyer. If you're just saying like, hey DM, that thing that you said is actually not a rule in the game, that's not problematic. There's nothing wrong with that unless they tell you they have a problem with it.
And that's the thing. I mean, this is, again, comes down to good communication. But if you're getting the sense, like you said, I'm not trying to be a rules lawyer, but that's how it's coming across. And the term rules lawyer gets this connotation to it that can be aggressive or, like, I guess, toxic, like you said in your title. But that's, I don't think, nothing in here tells me that it's in your heart. And the fact that you're even asking the question, that it's in your heart to be that guy at the table. I think you're just trying to make sure everybody's on the same page because you have rules to help make decisions in the context and understanding of how they may have consequences to those choices. But if you're getting that sense, just soften your speech. And if you want to maybe send them a text message or a DM or something like that and just say, hey, like, I'm getting the sense that I feel like I'm correcting you a lot. And I don't want to be that guy. Do you want me to speak up when I feel like something's happening? Like, you could just like talk about it and I'm sure it'll work out just fine. But no, you're not being toxic for wanting the game to function properly.
If that conversation doesn't work out just fine, then the other person is a problem player or you're terrible at communicating. It's one or the other.
It's one or the other. You can tell us about it in the comment section. Next up, we have Zafadri, who writes, feeling excluded as a DM and feeling like I didn't do a good enough job. Putting this under table disputes, but no one's really angry with each other. Everyone is still cool. I was DMing for a while in our friend group, but especially with mental health issues and just DMing for a while, I was feeling pretty burnt out and stopped doing it consistently. And around that time, my friend had taken over DMing with another group of friends, and they seemed to enjoy their campaign a lot. I didn't mind originally. We were switching off, and in the summer, we both got to host campaigns, both of us now playing once a week. But around when school started up again, we agreed to take a break together as a group for my campaign, but they got back to playing their campaign shortly after. Looking back, I could have advocated harder for my campaign, but I'm not sure if they'd be interested in playing their campaign twice a month. Now they're playing once a week and there's no real time for my campaign, despite me wanting to host one again. And fortunately, I was able to host a session 1 for a minor campaign, but sessions will be held sparingly, likely once a month. It has me feeling a bit miffed, I suppose, because I don't know any other people to play D&D with, really. And I feel like despite all the hard work I put in, I failed to make my campaigns fun enough. They still enjoy playing with me, but it isn't to the level where they want to give up a session slot, I think. And I think if I were to ask, they'd say no. Well, I think many DMs sometimes feel a little self-conscious at times when someone else does the job and they do it differently and there's different reactions. But what do you got for us on this one, Josh?
It sounds like Zafadri. You know,
Italians,
they had
man.
yeah. They had mentioned some mental health issues, and especially I empathize with getting burnt out and just needing a break from DMing when you have a long form game. It just happens sometimes, but there's a lot of assumptions that this person is making, and I'm a huge overthinker. I get in my own head. There's been multiple times where like I've had a session and just I'm like, man, that was the worst. Like I just did such a horrible job there or whatever. And then when you actually
Like
talk
my
to
mind is
people
blown
about
because you're like, that was great. Dash, you're the best.
when you actually talk to your players and communicate with them, a lot of the time you find out that that's just your perception of it because I'm assuming a little bit here, but it sounds like you, like myself, are your own biggest critic. The answer is going to be communication. You need to talk to them about it. But the thing I want to highlight is those last two sentences. I feel like despite all the hard work I put in, I failed to make my campaigns fun enough. They still enjoy playing with me, but it isn't to the level where they want to give up a session slot. I think if I were to ask, they'd say no.
That stood out to me too.
That's you're creating the narrative. You might be an unreliable narrator. I am myself at times. You don't really know if it's a huge stretch to say that you failed to make your campaigns fun enough. I mean, it sounds like you were playing together for a decent amount of time, and they kept coming back every week or every other week or however long you're playing for. And you haven't X'd, so you don't know what the scenario is. So I guess the biggest things that I want to say, I know this is very long-winded, give yourself some grace, take a deep breath, it's okay. And if they didn't have fun, they didn't have fun, whatever. I'm sure that's not the case. But you need to talk to them, have a conversation, just say, hey, I was really enjoying our campaign. I know we had to put it on pause and take a break for a little bit. I'm definitely ready to get back into it. If you all would like to do that, is that something you're interested in? They might say yes, they might say no. If they say no, maybe ask about joining the other campaign. And I'd probably ask that question to the DM of the other campaign, not necessarily like the whole group. I guess that just depends on your dynamic. But
yeah, you can even just phrase it like, if there ever is an open slot, please know I'm interested. That kind of a thing. But yeah, I like to phrase it this way. Give people a chance to fail before you assume they already have. Until you know, you don't know. You don't know. But it's good advice. And we've got a video that's probably on screen right now about lies that dungeon masters tell themselves. And I would recommend anyone who's struggling with this topic to watch that video.
And if you have a story you want advice on, we definitely want to hear about that. You can put it in the comments or in our Discord.
Go to Reddit, man. I don't want that negativity.